pictures here. I don't know. One more. Those are the exhibits we use in the
May it please the court.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Karen, Mr. Simon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. It's not here for opening statements, but you've seen me here since that point in time. And I will introduce myself and Jonathan Lee, Assistant Commonwealth's Attorney. But what I want to talk to you about right now is, I'll start with one of the things that Ms. Karen said in her closing, and that is that this is very important. And it certainly is. Life and death. Life and death. That's how important this is. The life of Ronnie King and the death of Ronnie King. And not just the death, but a murder. A horrible, horrible murder at that. Now, when Ms. Karen and I are speaking in closing arguments, that's what it is, it's argument. And we're only supposed to talk about stuff that actually came in as evidence, either through testimony or a piece of tangible evidence, and certainly things that you can infer. That's all we're supposed to talk about. So I want to talk to you about some of the things that were said. You know, one of the things that was talked about by Ms. Karen was that we don't know if this that even occurred on the 17th, if the murder of Ronnie King even occurred
I'm going to object
on the
and ask you a
17th.
vote. Objection, Your Honor.
Come up.
I'm not saying you can never say anything about what I said, but I think I need to ask it before we start telling the jury it. So what are you going to...
But you said that you don't even know if it occurred on the 17th, and the instructions say on or about.
Yes, they do, on or about.
That's what the
It might not be
indictment
exactly
says.
the 17th, I can see that argument.
Okay.
Okay. But I didn't say anything
You said
incorrect,
exactly.
right?
We don't even know if he was killed on the 17th,
Right.
and I'm going to say it doesn't matter because it's on or about.
Okay, but I didn't say anything incorrect. I didn't misconstrue evidence.
Well,
You made it sound like I was misconstruing evidence.
Actually, I'm going to get to what I do think you misconstrued, and that is that the medical records, nowhere in there does it say that he was alive. It says minimal soot. In fact, when asked, she said, I can't tell you whether or not he was alive.
I think that's an inference that someone could
can't
draw
tell
from
you.
those records.
I can't tell you whether or not he was alive. So I'm going to
So
talk
that's not
about all of
enough.
that, and I'm permitted to do that.
I don't want him to characterize what I said as misinterpreting or misconstruing evidence. It's evidence. We have a different interpretation of the evidence.
Are you representing to the jury that it did not, his death did not occur?
No, it's in the report. What I'm saying is I may have a different interpretation. He has a different interpretation, but I don't want him to say that
Wait a minute.
that it was a-
Are you representing to the jury that it did not occur on the 18th? Just tell me.
That is part of the defense, is that it did not occur on the 17th, it occurred on the 18th.
Yeah.
But that's still on or
date?
about.
What's it
It
say
says
again?
on or about, which is
On or
what I'm
about.
going to say.
Yeah, I don't think it's
First
outside
off,
that
when she
range.
says inference, the only thing that I've said thus far is that both of us have to only say things that actually came in as admissible evidence.
Right.
That's not a false statement. It's not a misleading statement. It's 100% true. And
It's
we're
an
both-
implication that
we're
I said
both held to
something that wasn't in
standard.
evidence, which is
What
not
did
true.
you say?
I said that if you interpret the medical examiner's results,
That's not how
you
you
can...
said it.
What'd you say?
Okay.
She said that overwhelming, the medical evidence says that it was killed instantaneously, that no very few minutes passed. And she didn't say that. She said there was minimal soot in the esophagus, and I can't tell you if that means he was alive or dead. I don't know that.
That's not a no, he wasn't.
That's
And they didn't ask a lot of questions about that when they were talking
So what's your
about the law.
objection?
My objection is for the prosecutor to say that I said things that were not in evidence.
No, I didn't say that.
So as long as he doesn't go there,
All I
then
said
I'm
was
going
we
to
both
be
have
fine.
to. We both have to say things that are in
You
evidence.
both have to say
That's
things that are
That's
in
true.
evidence.
The implication is that perhaps I did not, which is not true.
I would,
I don't know. I'm not sure what we're arguing about right now, and I'm not
That's
sure what your objections are
We're
about.
objecting. It's in my closing, which is very
Yeah, that- all right.
briefly,
Yeah.
my memory of the medical examiner is that her response was that he breathed inside.
No,
Now, I could be wrong,
that'd be wrong.
but I'm
All
going to
right.
put that on the
Look,
record now.
we,
And they can,
Mr. Lee gave you a wide berth during closing, and
Very.
it's proper to give some leeway in closing. So let's move on with it, and not interrupt it
there
again.
are certain objections I'll have to make, and I just wanted to make sure that we didn't go too far. So we didn't go too far, so we'll keep going. Got it.
I want to continue precisely with where I was, which is talking about, was he even killed on the 17th? Okay. Well, as you can see in your instructions, that level of specificity is not something that's required. It says on or about the 17th day of February 2013. Talk a little bit about soot. Please, I want you to, when you go back there, look at the medical records, because there will be no statement concerning definitive times of death, how long did the individual, did Ronnie King survive while the fire was ongoing, if at all. Minimal levels of soot in the upper portions of the respiratory area. So, a few things here, then I'm going to get to some of the things that we didn't talk about. You know, we have a man walking away from a crime scene, and Mr. Cornett, if you recall, while he was up there were other people walking away from the crime scene, but I don't know how far that extends out. And that's a ways away from where the actual house was. So it would surprise me if more people didn't walk through that area. We have no idea, where the individual came from, and no evidence was presented either way about that. We heard Ms. Karen talk about phone records and Cellbrite interchangeably. We also heard her state that Mr. Cornett did not even review, I believe she said 1,800 pages of Cellbrite report. That's correct. We had a witness here that is from the Kentucky State Police Electronics Crimes Branch, and that's his job. And he did review it, and he was here to testify about it. And some of the things that he said was, these aren't phone records. This is a retrieval of information off of a cell phone, and we don't know what we're going to retrieve, what we're going to be able to get. Some things will come back and others won't. We don't get it all. It's not a phone record. It's a data retrieval system. There was mention of Lee Miller and Shelby Shell working with Lee Miller. Mr. Cornett testified that he spoke to Lee Miller and that Shelby Shell was not at work on the 17th or 18th or 19th. That's what he testified about. There was some mention about Dixon, and early on, through the trial, we were talking about Kevin Dixon and Well, did he say Kevin? Were you talking to him? And the reason why I started this by saying life and death is because we know Ronnie King was alive during this period because one of our witnesses, Jerry Mulkey, says, I was on the phone with him. My brother Ronnie, he was alive. And 6 years ago, what she told the police, what was testified to that she told the police and they put in their report, was that she said that Ronnie said Kevin. At the time, when it was happening, when the investigation was ongoing, immediately after, he said Kevin, and I thought that that was Kevin Dixon. You know, something was made about Jimbo and Ernie, and you heard from witnesses that said things about Ernie, and a significant portion of them also said during that time they didn't like him. One of them said he'd made them get arrested. The other one, they were mad at him. And stories matching up, they're talking about stories matching up. The blinds were not there. The blinds were not there. Shelby told him he was going to get the blinds, to burn the blinds because they had fingerprints on them. They're not there. I think that's a bad thing that they're not there. Stories matching up, one of the things that wasn't told or wasn't highlighted at least, is that the stories, each and every time, they originated with Shelby Shell. They originated with Shelby Shell. Who told Ernie? He testified. Shelby Shell told him. Who told Jimbo Collins? He testified. Shelby Shell told him. You heard a phone call. Who was on that? Shelby Shell. We're going to talk about that some more here in a moment. Ronnie King shot first. That was one of the things that Ernie Shell had stated on the stand that Shelby had told him. And again, that wasn't highlighted. Shelby's telling him, I killed this man, but he shot at me first. There was no evidence presented that there was another shot from the Kentucky State Police. And when Ernie testified about that, he said, yeah, Shelby told me that, but some of this stuff he went back and forth on. A bookshelf was shown to you. Because Ernie had said a bookshelf was turned over. Again, Shelby's the one that told him that, but he said a bookshelf was shown over. And one bookshelf was shown to you. Was there any evidence that that was the only one in the house?
Objection. May I search? I'm sorry. I am sorry. I don't want to interrupt your closing. But when you say something like, was there evidence that there was anything else in the house, that's impermissibly shifting the burden from the prosecution to the defense. I would just ask
No, it
that.
does not.
It's pointing
No, it does
out
not.
that it was one
Let me
picture.
tell you something, Scott.
Okay.
You spent most of your argument talking about things that aren't there, that haven't been done, that aren't in evidence. He just happened to mention
I just have to make the
appropriate
objection, Your
observation
Honor, for the record.
and this is an inappropriate corruption. Now you said things like they didn't recover nail clippers, which are commonly used to collect DNA. There's not an ounce of evidence in the record that nail clippers are used to collect DNA.
Nail clippings.
Nail clippings. There's nothing in it.
That's why they take them. But nonetheless, Your Honor.
Now, listen to me.
Okay.
Listen to me. This is an inappropriate objection. And so are rules. Have a seat. All right?
Okay. Once more, I'm going to get back to right where I was. and that is moving on from things that were in that I had to touch on early to getting to this part. What's right in front of us, the evidence that was presented throughout the entirety of this case. Let's go to 148 Kelly Street, Harlan County, Kentucky. It's right there. That's where this happened. Ronnie King was murdered at 148 Kelly Street. And when we were trying to tell you this story throughout the course of the trial, it was disjointed. We had to start and stop, start and stop. But these things happen fluidly. It's going at all times. And at one point, Mr. Corder had even said when the investigation wasn't leading to suspects immediately, I was grasping at straws. I was going down every angle I could go down. I was chasing everything, looking at everything, trying to find out what was going on. And one of those things was, yes, Kevin Dixon. Because as has been stated, and was stated on the stand, the name Kevin came up, and that was possibly Kevin Dixon. But Mr. Corner said we looked into it. We pulled a video from Marathon. We spoke to people who were with this individual. And we had to keep searching. We had to keep searching. And the next significant thing that happened was Ernie Shell. Ernie Shell. He did speak to law enforcement. And he did come in to talk to Mr. Corner. And there he said, I've got to tell you, my brothers told me a story about Ronnie King. And talking about things that match up, let's do that. Let's talk about some of the things that he said had happened. First off, that the entry happened in a very unique way. Shelby told Ernie, I got into the house because I heard Ronnie on the phone. I heard him. And I heard him telling somebody when I knocked that he thought it was Kevin. So he took advantage of that. And he entered that house by stating that he was Kevin, not Shelby. He was Kevin. That's what he told his brother, Ernie Shelton. He told him that he zip-tied the defendant. So I zip-tied. And in the evidence that we showed from some of the pictures that were taken by the coroner, you can see zip ties on the victim. You see them. That matches up. He said, I duct taped him. Shelby Shell told Ernie Shell, I duct taped him. And we see from the pictures at the crime scene, he was duct taped. He was bound with zip ties. He was duct taped. And not just I duct taped him, but he told Ernie, I duct taped him around his head too. And we see that his feet are bound, his hands are bound. And he has duct tape around his face. And not just the duct tape, but a leather belt and zip ties. It says Ronnie began to break zip ties. That's what Shelby told Ernie. So he began to break these zip ties. He's breaking one after the other. Six zip ties. Here we have the feet bound, hands and duct tape around the head. Zip tie. Zip tie. Zip tie. He kept breaking them. You know, he told Ernie that he went to look for a hammer, but when he came back, things were happening, and he grabbed a pillow, he put it over Ronnie King's head, and he put the gun up to the head, pressed hard, and bam! He shot Ronnie King in the head. Here's the pillow. That was in the story as well. It matches up. Shelby Shell told Ernie that he went back to burn evidence because he thought that he had left fingerprints. And he did say shades. And all of the shades on that, they're gone. They're gone from the windows. No fingerprints recovered. Said he took $60-some, jewelries and rings. Ernie told you, he said he beat up. Shelby told me he beat up the jewelry. That he had Ronnie open up the safe. That he had knives and old money. A Smith & Wesson. That as he comes and meets Shelby for the first time, that he does have a file. And that he's going down a gun, and that it was a Smith & Wesson pistol. One of the pieces of evidence recovered from the crime scene is an empty Smith & Wesson box. There's no gun in there. So then we move on to Jimbo Collins. And he's telling yes, substantially the same thing, because who was he told by? The same exact person. The same exact person told him. And so their stories are substantially the same. That's correct. That he got into the house under the pretense of having sex with Ronnie King. That he used zip ties, but Ronnie King kept breaking the zip ties. That he duct taped him after that. That he had to use a whole roll of duct tape. Duct taped his mouth and his nose. Then he shot him in the head. We heard from Mr. Cornick concerning the Jimbo Collins interview that Shelby stated that he doused the body with gasoline. You later heard evidence that from the shirt they found traces of gasoline. They found traces of gasoline on the shirt. Tried to sell him wheat pennies. Heard testimony from the family that he kept things like that, old money. And they found that on him. They found those pennies. So let's look at, if we can, the pictures from the search warrant. We found a gas can in the truck. Come on, please. Old jewelry, beat up. Beat up old jewelry. Just as had been stated by Shelby Shell to Ernie Shell and Jimbo Collins. Please keep going. This is a rolled up section of old money that was opened up by Mr. Cornick to you during the trial as he was putting on evidence, and said these are old wheat pennies are in here. Script from Yoakum Creek, which is in Everts, was found in that bag in Shelby Shell's truck. Inside the door, underneath what would appear to be electronics, inside the door, a cigarette package that had 38 shell caliber hollow point bullets. Now check the medical records and see what type of ammunition, if any, is identified there. What was extracted. But then, after all of that, after these two individuals come and they say, we've been told a story. We've been told that story by Shelby Shell, and he's admitted to us that he killed Ronnie King. He wants us to buy some of these things from him. And the facts and statements that they made to the police matched the crime scene. Incredibly matched the crime scene. After all of that, what was provided to you was a phone call from Shelby Shell himself. And Jimbo Collins asks him, and I want you to listen to this, please. You'll have the recording. 32 seconds in. Still got them pennies? Jimbo asks him. Yeah. Shelby says, yeah. What do you want for them? Just gas money's all I need. Just gas money. Jimbo asks him, did you tell Ernie that you went up there and killed that dude? Did you tell him? Yeah, he knows it, Shelby says. Yeah, he knows it. Then he asks Jim, you think I can trust him? Talking about Ernie. You think I can trust him, Jim, for real? Two minutes into the tape, Jimbo tells Shelby, he loves you, man. He's talking about Ernie. He loves you, man. He don't want you to kill nobody, though. And Shelby's response to that, he don't want you to kill nobody, though. Shelby laughs. He laughs. 2:27 into the tape recording. Jimbo says, if you do that again, is there any way you could not kill anybody, just rob them and tie them up? At 2:34, Shelby says, that's what I told him. I said, Ernie, I won't. If you get me some handcuffs. Then he says at 2:40, if you don't, I'm going to have to. You hear me? $2:47, Shelby says, if I can get some handcuffs, then I can get some stuff to tie them up with. And he follows that up a few seconds later by saying, he broke 6 zip ties. You hear? 6 zip ties. You hear me? Jimbo says, Ronnie King did? And Shelby says, yeah. At 3:25, Shelby says, I walked in, kicked him in the face, and said, you stupid son of a bitch. $3:57, he says, he being Shelby, when he broke the last one, I said, I told you, motherfucker. He broke the last one. I told you. 1 second later, I put a pillow over him. He grabbed a hold of me and I went, pow, you hear me? Shelby Shell told Jimbo Collins that. 4:15 talking about duct tape. He said, I put a whole goddamn roll on him, you hear me? At 4:22 he said he broke it like it wasn't nothing. Struggling for life. Now that's the evidence of the case. And the Commonwealth does have a high burden. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a high burden, and it should be. But it's attainable. It's attainable. And I submit to you that we've reached it. Because if there is doubt, I don't think it's reasonable. It may exist. In a society, we don't have videos and affidavits and things everywhere. But we have evidence, and we've got Shelby Shell talking about it, and we've got Ronnie King, who is dead, and he died in a terrible way, and he died at the hands of Shelby Lee Shell. Killed him. He murdered him. The instructions state that in Harmon County and for murder, Shelby Lee Shell killed Ronnie King by shooting him. you'll have to decide whether or not we presented evidence of that. And that in so doing, in shooting him, Shelby Shell caused the death of Ronnie King intentionally, and that he did not act in self-protection. Self-protection. Tied up. Zip tied. Bound by duct tape. Belts. Self-protection. And that's why, because of that, because it takes self-protection to get past, I'm asking you to convict on murder. I believe that we have presented proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And what you can consider, what you should consider, and what you must consider in coming to that decision is what has been presented to you through the witnesses, through the evidence. What's been presented to you? That's what you consider. I'm asking that you not convict on first-degree manslaughter, because I do not believe that Shelby Shell was privileged to act in self-protection. I don't believe the evidence shows that. Tampering with physical evidence, altered, concealed, removed evidence which he believed was about to be produced or used in an official proceeding. The evidence from Ernie Shell, Shelby Shell, Jimbo. I went back to start a fire, and they told you why Shelby said he started that fire. Thought I left my fingerprints. Robbery in the first degree. That Shell stole jewelry, money, and other items from Ronnie King. All identified as Commonwealth's Exhibit 9. It's there. In the course of doing that, with the intent to accomplish the theft, Shelby Shell used or threatened the immediate use of physical force upon Ronnie King. I believe that we have provided evidence which I believe shows force was used upon Ronnie King. He's dead. He was tied up. He was bound. And when Shelby Shell did so, he was armed with a pistol, and that the pistol is defined as a deadly weapon. You know, one of the things that was talked about is our inferences and the types of evidence: circumstantial, direct, tangible. They all exist. Kidnapping. That in Harlan County, on or about the 17th day of February, Shelby Shell restrained Ronnie King by wrapping zip ties to the hands of Ronnie King, or by wrapping duct tape around the hands of Ronnie King, or by wrapping duct tape around the head of Ronnie King, and that the restraint was without Ronnie King's consent. And that in so restraining Ronnie King, it was Shelby Shell's intention to accomplish or advance the commission of a felony. Murder is a felony. Robbery is a felony. Those are felonies. And that Ronnie King was not released alive. And unfortunately he wasn't. He was not. Burglary in the first degree. That in Harlan County, Kentucky, on or about the 17th day of February, Shelby Shell knowingly entered or remained in a building owned by Ronnie King without the permission of Ronnie King or any other person authorized to give such permission. Entered or remained. He entered according to Shelby, stating that he was Kevin. He remained in there even after he started doing these terrible things to Ronnie. And after Ronnie was dead and could no longer even give permission, he came back. went in the house to burn it down. And that's a crime. Arson. That in Harlan County, Kentucky, on or about the 17th day of February, Shelby Shell damaged a building owned by Ronnie King by fire. And it was Shelby Shell's intention to damage or destroy the building. That Ronnie King did not consent to the damage to the building. And that in so doing, it was not Shelby L. Shell's intent to damage or destroy the building for a lawful purpose. We've shown you the residence. Ravaged by fire. As the individuals on the stand said, intentionally started. Multiple places, intentionally started. There are some things that we do agree on, and that is, the primary is this. This is a very, very important case. This is life and death. It is the life and death of Ronnie King, who was murdered in a terrible, terrible way. You have the evidence that's been presented to you. I encourage you to look at it, to study it. And I believe that when you look at all of it, you will find that we have met our burden beyond a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt. And I ask you to convict Shelby Shell for the murder of Ronnie King, for the kidnapping of Ronnie King, for the arson to Ronnie King's house, for tampering with physical evidence, for robbery in the first degree, for burglary. I ask you to convict him. I thank you for your time. I know it's been long. You've done wonderful. You've been out of here for several portions and in and out. And I thank you for listening and paying attention to the evidence and allowing me to speak to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be in your hands now. But the first thing we need to do is let two of you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. Still have 14 jurors. As I told you in the beginning, 2 of you will be alternates in the event we had an emergency or someone got sick or something like that, and we wouldn't have a full complement of jurors. So at this point, I'm going to ask the clerk to draw two numbers at random, and the 2 numbers that are drawn, you will go home. Okay. I know that must feel a little, well, I'm not going to get into how that might feel to you, but anyway, go ahead, Madam Clerk, and draw the 2 alternate numbers.
354.
Ma'am, thank you for everything and for being here.
366.
Wait, ma'am, you have to leave your paperwork and your notepad and everything. Thank you. What was the other number?
360.
Sir, thank you so much for your service. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, ma'am, did you get your jury badge? Okay. Thank you.
Those are valuable badges, let me tell you. All right, I'm going to ask the bailiff to collect your copies of the instructions, because in reading them to you, I made some changes, and my changes on the instructions will be the instructions you'll go by, my copy. So the bailiff will take my copy when you go back to the jury room in a moment. So you have them all
Yeah, and I've got we got Chris. All right.
Okay, very good. All right.
Give you those notebooks. Give me the pen back out of it. All right, here you go.
All right, Bailiff, here are the instructions to take back with the jury. When you get back to the jury room, ladies and gentlemen, it's in your hands now. You have your instructions, and when you get back, choose a foreperson and go into your deliberations. This is a time when you are to talk about this case among yourselves, and we'll be here. All right? All rise.